This episode of the Ankler Podcast is sponsored by Universal Pictures presenting Wicked. Forbes hails Wicked as a triumph of cinema, and the Wall Street Journal has selected it as the best film of the year. Nominated for 11 Critics' Choice Awards, including Best Director John M. Chu, Best Actress Cynthia Erivo, Best Supporting Actress Ariana Grande, and Best Picture. Wicked, now playing in theaters and available to watch at home.
It would be a good thing if people stopped saying,
listen,
I'll destroy them, and stop making claims like that.
I would love to stop receiving threats. Yeah, sure.
I'm not.
Is your inbox okay? I'm a little concerned here.
I'm not saying sure. We should all just.
Richard loves making that threat to people. Come on. Welcome to the Ankler Podcast. This is Sean McNulty of the Wake Up Newsletter here at the Ankler, here back in New York City on Thursday, January 2nd, 2025. I'm joined in this fine new year in Los Angeles by Elaine Lowe and Richard Rushfield. Richard, did you get your excess parachute payment in your Christmas stocking like the three CEOs of Paramount this year?
Yes. All the studios are paying me not to work for them in 2025.
Wow. Richard can be bought off, everybody. Just FYI. Yeah.
They asked how much it would be for me not to have lunch on their lot even, and I said, you can't afford it. So
you can't keep Richard away from a commissary. Yeah. Come on, people. You know better than that.
Yes. Have a good year, and maybe we can talk about that.
Yeah. Elaine, that's a quote, excess parachute payment. This is an official SEC term, Elaine. Nothing quite like a compensation committee of the board of Paramount Global issuing a document on Christmas Eve, Richard, to approve a measure that immediately vested the shares of everybody in the C-suite at Paramount. So how convenient. You don't have to wait until 2027 to get your shares right now, Richard. It's so nice.
It's beautiful. Christmas spirit all around.
I love that you were paying attention to SEC filings on Christmas Eve, Sean. That's real commitment.
Well, that was when it was issued. The day it came out, well, Elaine, you'll love this one. It came out at 5 p.m. on the Friday after Christmas. I'm like, oh boy, yeah, nice, But the thing was that the date of the SEC document was literally December 24th. I'm like, oh, the committee got together on Christmas Eve. How nice. So anyway, nice normal course of business to round out 2024. Elaine, I'm not going to say I've specifically not read any of the Baldoni Lively updates this week, but I'm not going to say I haven't.
It's all anyone's talking about, Sean.
So please, if anything, just get me up to speed here, I guess. Maybe Richard, I don't know if I'm going to throw you in with this or not, Richard, but just pretend.
After we recorded last week about the initial New York Times story that came out 2 weekends ago, Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively have both filed lawsuits against each other, and Baldoni has been dropped by his agents at WME. So essentially, Baldoni, they both filed suits against each other on the same day, too. And Baldoni is, accusing the New York Times of essentially working with Lively's PR team. And I think, quote, self-serving narrative is what he says they relied on in that story. And then Lively also filed a suit against Baldoni and his PR team of essentially trying to undermine her reputation after she, had accused him of several sexual harassment and sexual misconduct claims when they were working on It Ends With Us. I would encourage everyone to read our own Matthew Frank's interview with...
Yes, I read that.
Yes. Okay, you did read that.
I did read that. It was very good. Yeah.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry to our producer, Casper, who is Norwegian, for mispronouncing this Norwegian reporter's name, Kjersti Flar.
Nailed it.
Okay. I'm sure I didn't, but...
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
Spoke to this reporter who was named in this initial New York Times story and was sort of implied to be part of the Baldoni PR campaign. But when our own Matthew Frank talked to her, she said essentially it sounded like it was a surprise and, that the New York Times kind of insinuated that she was part of the Baldoni campaign when she wasn't.
Yeah, they didn't even apparently contacted her for any comment on the matter, that was the most striking part of it, Elaine, which is like, you didn't even, you mentioned this, insinuated this person was in cahoots with the PR team of Baldoni. It was happenstance at best, Richard.
So tell me this, Elaine, as one who's followed this story, which I really haven't been able to lately, but the quotes that I've heard of all these people, like the PR person said, we'll destroy them and we'll take them down and we're going to ruin their reputation. That strikes me as like, that is the way people talk in every single conversation in Hollywood, and no one ever takes that seriously, that the people could do it. even if they wanted to. But it reads to me like a lot of bravado and big talk. But
now, is your doubt that that's something that's actually feasible? Like if somebody says, no, nobody in this town is ever going to work with you again, that's something that's actually difficult to produce.
Yeah, and people say that all the time, and no, you can't ban someone. One person doesn't have the power to ban someone from working. You can, anyone can spread a rumor about. You don't even need a PR firm to spread a rumor about someone. But
didn't we see that bear out though when you're talking about years of Weinstein accusations about essentially the same thing?
Yeah, and the world has changed since then. It is not a world that's like shut down any kind of rumors or that's very open. And there was no social media back in when Harvey was running amok. And I hear a lot of that kind of bravado from PR people very frequently. And I tend to take it with many grains of salt when I hear it.
I think that's what was so surprising about this story, right? That, as reporters too, I'm sure we've all kind of been on the receiving end of similar threats and admonishments from PR people. But the idea that there was a campaign on social that did seem to work, that seemed to align with what a lot of people anecdotally felt they were seeing on social media at the time during the It Ends With Us press tour of a lot of negative campaigning against Blake Lively.
But what is worked? Like that some sort of rumors were put in the water? Like my 10-year-old could do that right now. Anyone who has a Twitter account could drop stuff in the water. Like I haven't quite get like there's a lot of implications of this kind of giant this sinister campaign, and it seems a lot more. It just feels like a lot more hot air than really giant coordinated campaign out there.
In terms of the actual damage done to her reputation, you mean?
Yes, but I don't follow these things very well, so if I'm wrong, you tell me.
I feel like as somebody who's chronically online and also somebody who's a woman on the internet, there's a real feel of, oh, yeah, she was really getting a lot of negative comments on social. You look at Instagram, you look at Twitter. We'll let this play out in court and see how it goes. But with Blake Lively, it doesn't seem, and I think if you are a woman on the internet, it does not seem implausible what happened. And I think that is what is resonating with some people when they read the story. Now, that's completely different from the Kirsty Fleur story, of course, and what's happening with Matthew Frank's interview with her, where she essentially says that she was kind of sucked into this story unwittingly and had nothing to do with the campaign, even though that's what the insinuation was.
Yeah. And professional reputation and things like that with the journalist is a different story than a movie star. To a degree, I guess you could make it that point. Richard, the only thing I'd say business-wise, she has a line of beauty products. Is that the Blake Lively? I'm sorry, I'm not.
Yeah, she has hair care products.
Hair care, yeah, which apparently did take a large financial hit, Richard. So maybe they would try and construe that as damage. But again, to Elaine's point, it's you're getting into dueling lawsuits, and that's for lawyers to prove and things along those lines. So we'll see what shakes out. Elaine will keep us posted.
It would be a good thing if people stop saying,
listen,
I'll destroy them, and
that'd be great.
Stop making claims like that.
I would love to stop receiving threats. Yeah, sure.
I'm not.
Is your inbox okay? I'm a little concerned here.
I'm not saying sure. We should all just.
Richard loves making that threat to people. Come on, yeah, exactly. So
Yeah, the way the internet works, right? I think it's really easy to say, oh, it's simply a chorus of yahoos on the internet. All you need to do is ignore them and shut off your computer. And then it's another thing where, having personally experienced this when I was reporting on a certain comedian about 4 or 5 years ago, to have a whole mass of people come after you on Twitter and at your personal socials and then threaten to dox you and your address and your personal information over something that they didn't like you reporting about. So I do think the internet effect of some of these things that happen en masse have a very real, tangible, real life impact here.
Yeah, that could be this is now being put on trial, Elaine. So this will be, a lawsuit. So it's going to go to the courts. Will have to, chime in on these very things, which you just said have been more just, state of business in public court versus judicial court. So that may be the most interesting thing to come out of this, Richard, as you say, is, will this put an end to that kind of thing? And I'm like, well, if you're going to get a $100 million lawsuit payout, you might not. You might be more careful about that.
All right, here's what I really think. And this is totally sight unseen on.
Because Richard generally holds back.
Just holds back. No, very much so. Exactly. Thank you, Elaine.
That kind of big talk is the kind of big talk that publicists put out when they're trying to make a client happy, and they can't really do very much for him. So you're just keeping them happy, saying, yes, we're going to destroy them, we'll take them down. And that's how you get through me. And that my publicist friends that are listening, who are the real professionals and actually do move stories and get things done, don't tend to talk that way.
That is true. I'll agree with that part.
Oh, I'll agree. I think we should end. That's the good note to end on, Richard, and I will third that notion for sure. So anyway, shifting gears here, the multiplex here, the year's over, Richard. We've talked a lot about the numbers here in this podcast. The final numbers are in from ComScore, which is generally seems to be the sheriff of box office numbers, but $8.7 billion, which is just 3% below $9 billion from last year. And considering the strikes made the first 4 months of this year, desert with Dune, no pun intended, and Godzilla basically holding up the first 4 months, and May at Hollywood that will be forgotten as fast as they can. Richard, I think again, this was a business that was, I think the number was maybe 23% down as of May, and we got to minus 3%. So, definitely a lot of positive things going on there, even though the number is down, technically down 3%. Mind you, 4 films made up about 25% of that box office number. But welcome to the movie business, Richard, as you always say.
The number I heard is that animation accounts for half of the box office.
That was, because you have Despicable Me 4, you had Inside Out 2,
Wild Robot,
and Wild Robot, and Moana 2. So, right there alone, you're talking
Mustafa, if you count that. Too.
Mufasa, I don't know if you're,
Mufasa.
What does Mufasa count under? A live-action CG?
I think it counts live action for. I would call that animation, but I don't think that it is for. I know it's referred to as live, and they did shoot it. So I think you have to, even if it doesn't appear that way. Well, anyway, I don't know, Richard, if that falls into that way. But either way, that would even be more Sonic 3, another one, of course, the big one here at the holidays. So, I think, Richard, this year, that is probably very true, which is half is, that's something.
And that's with a really kind of tepid slate of animation. Like, they're months.
The first half of the year, that's only half of the year.
So that should show you something.
That tells you a lot, yeah.
And I don't know if it's about the success of animation or the failure of everything else. But my headline on this year is it should have been much worse. The studios deserved much worse than they got, and a few films save it from utter catastrophe, which, maybe is always the case, but
a little more so this year, I think, than in
Do you feel like that's a trend that's going to continue, where you have this widening gap between the major hits, which help pull up the rest of the box office, versus everything else that gets scattered through the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think, again, I'd have to go back and look at the exact numbers, Elaine, but, the Avengers doing, whatever, $2 billion, or it's like you have those things where it's an Avengers year and Star Wars. Like, I'm sure if you did the math and that's 2019, you probably wouldn't be too far off. But I don't know.
When we have a more vigorous lineup, close to 120 films going, you have kind of the shelf life where you just have you have a lot more things in the middle. And that's what you need to have a great box office year. Not just the hits, but a lot of singles and doubles.
Yeah, and actually ESG is just looking at this this week in a new piece that he wrote there at theankler.com, and it's so essentially the 2017 to 2019 period, Elaine, those were over $11 billion each year. And it said this year was 8.7, last year was 9. So about a $2 billion difference. And that's kind of what Richard's alluding to. That's the pocket that's missing. A lot of great new charts in the piece, but the number, so I'll pop quiz you here a little bit, guys. The number of films that broke the $100 million mark in the U.S. from 2017 to 2019 was about 95, a little under 100. From 2022 to
2017 within 3 years.
Within 3 years, so you're talking about 30 a year, Richard.
About $100 million movies.
In the $100 million in the U.S. grossing movies. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So from 2022 to 2024, how many films was that in that 3-year period?
So I'm going to guess that this year was about 22 is my guess.
Okay, I don't know the number for this year, but for the
wait, you were saying from 2022 to 2024,
3-year period.
How many $100 million films were there?
And I'm going to say that is on the high side to fairly typical. So multiply that times 3, so 66.
All right, Elaine.
And what was the number again?
I think that's high. I'm going to say 59.
Okay.
Adjusted margin of 7.
I'm gonna let you down it. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Elaine.
wait. What was the number initially that you had said between 2019?
It's about 95, a little under 100.
Between 2019 and 2024?
No, from Elaine, I'm gonna write this down for numbers. Jeez. For those playing at home, 2017 to 2019 was about 95-ish. And from 2022 to 2024 is the question of how many. And Richard says 59. I don't have this is from ESG. I don't have this. Not my number, so I don't have the exact number.
I think Richard has a very good guess because I would say probably about 2/3, right? But you know what? I'll go even drastically lower. I'll say it's only been 47 between 22 and 24.
According to ESG, this is a little over 60. So Richard, you're closest. We'll give you that. Richard, you were pretty much spot on there. So it's about 30 to 40% disparity there. And again, there's that $2 billion of box office missing and 40 films at $100 million, yada, yada, yada. So that's Elaine, the point of what, the big ones are still big and probably gaining the largest percentage of the box office for the year. But that kind of, the area that lifts the boats in the other parts of the year is just not there anymore.
Well, and all I have to say, if you've looked ahead at the release calendar for this year,
Richard, yeah. I mean,
I think we're going to be having a similar conversation at the end.
I think so. Richard, did you look at this recently?
I did yesterday. Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't. Tell me what's coming out this year.
Well, I mean, it's, so 2024 strike effect, and 2025 is no excuses. Like this is we're back. This is what this is now, and we'll see what plans out.
Yeah, we've had a full year since the strikes. A lot of the budget cuts are more or less done, you would think. Yeah,
exactly. So there's no more excuse of anything. COVID's were way beyond anything that 2022 had a little bit of that excuse. So the prediction's $9 billion again, and I was like, really? My impression was that 2025 was supposed to be a lot bigger. And Richard, I looked at it, and I mean, I'll walk through. Number one. You can give the crown to Disney right now. I mean, again, this is not even a competition. It's Captain America, Snow White, Thunderbolts. We'll see if that Pixar Elio movie hits in June. Fantastic Four, always iffy, but we'll see about that. Tron, the new Tron movie, Zootopia 2, and Avatar 3. I'm like, done. Like, just drop your mic.
So of those, the only ones that look like locks on approaching $1 billion are Zootopia and Avatar.
Yeah, sure.
Everything else is a question mark.
I could see Snow White doing it, but I don't know. It's, big question marks. So, yeah. And Thunderbolts, if it is. Yeah.
Of those remaining ones, say half exceed and half underperform. So
Right. But regardless, I mean, and they also have some Disney Fox, the Amateurs coming out, and I think there's a Predator movie. So, there are other things. Again, those kind of hopefully $100 million movies that they get in between there. But it's just like, all right, Disney's back. No problem there. But, you look at the first quarter, it's actually... I mean, the first quarter last year was terrible. And I mean, again, and we're kicking off here in January. The Wolfman is, the movie, which fine, maybe another Blumhouse movie. And there's nothing this weekend. Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, which is an action film coming out of this January 10th. Hopefully that does pretty well. The Better Man movie, the Robbie Williams is an Ape movie from Paramount.
I saw a lot of big stretches in that calendar without anything that looks like a home run. And
when are the barren periods this year?
Well, January until Captain America on Valentine's Day, like there's not a lot really going on here. I mean, maybe there's a surprise and Den of Thieves 2 does $30 million, who knows.
And Captain America, by the way, is not a surefire hit there. That one's been pushed back a few times, right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, the strikes affected that. And, Paddington and Peru, Elaine, I don't know, that may
I think Paddington's going to do gangbusters.
There you go.
Mark my words.
Yeah, but even from February 14th, all right, that's Captain America. Hopefully that hits. The next big thing isn't until Snow White on March 21st. So it's another 5 week period.
Also a question mark.
Which, I mean, I would, after the success of Wicked, and I think you're going to see the musical people. I think I'm less concerned about that one, but a question mark all the same, Richard. But I will say there is a bet, Richard. There's a complaint about originality in this business. Q1 is relying on it because what's in between there? You have Mickey 17 with Robert Pattinson, which is a big swing out there. You have Black Bag from Soderbergh with Blanchett and Fassbender. You have Novocaine, an action film with Jack Quaid, Alto Nights from Barry Levinson, Robert De Niro. You have Woman in the Yard from Universal. This is all original. There's no existing IP here. This is all, so listen, they're rolling the dice on this. So there is refreshing to see. And there's some other horror films and a few other things, action movies coming out as well that are all original. So Q1, listen, all right, back to originality, Richard. This is what it looks like.
All right. Well, we asked for it, so.
We asked for it. You got it, buddy. So
listen, you look at the list coming out at festivals next year. There's you got a Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
Yeah,
You've got other things that could catch fire.
Yep. And the summer should be big too, but I will say, Elaine, back to that, it's like $9 billion again. Like this is what's not, there hasn't shown up, and maybe it will. This, projecting an original film, Elaine, how much it's going to make, that's the bigger, it's easier to project out for what Snow White might do. It's not really, whether Novocaine takes off or not is a much bigger thing to predict.
I do wonder what the appetite for a live action Snow White is going to be.
Yeah, it's musical. So you got numbers going in there.
It's either going to be huge or it's going to be a blip. But I think the first family friendly movie that pops up for me that I think is going to do well is the Minecraft movie coming up in April.
That's on my list. Yeah, Minecraft from Warner Brothers in April. Yeah, which to me, that's a bigger if on that. Like that could either be massive or people are like, what's Minecraft?
Oh, I think it's going to be massive.
I would hope so.
Having an in with the elementary school set.
Elaine's intel report.
Yes, my focus groups tell me that the playground focus groups report that they're looking forward to the Minecraft movie.
All right.
And does the Mission Impossible?
Mission Impossible. Yep. That's Tom Cruise Memorial Day. So the old Top Gun Maverick slot there. So I will say to round out the conversation here, the experience at the theaters, Richard, we're going to have a lot to talk to the theater owners about at CinemaCon this year, because I'll tell you, I went to go to the movies here in this Christmas break. I got still a couple more I want to see this weekend, but it was 27 minutes of pre-show from the advertised time to when the movie started at AMC theaters. Went to go see The Fire Inside, and I went to go see A Complete Unknown this morning, actually, at a Regal Cinema, doing a little research here. That was 25 minutes, although it was majority trailers. AMC had a lot of their more crap in there than Regal did, but again, I'm going to a movie, and I'm trying to plan. Complete Unknown is a 2-hour and 20-minute movie. Trying to plan out my day.
You were there for 3 hours.
I was there for 3 hours. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, this is.
do you notice that with reserved seats now, when the movie starts and the trailers begin, nobody's there yet?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I walked in 5 minutes late, and the trailers had just started. So even at the time of my movie, the trailers hadn't started. And I'm like, this is not a great experience.
It's slowly getting longer and
longer. This is a bad experience.
It used to be 15 minutes, and then it was 20 minutes.
There's a limit, and this is over.
30 minutes is a hard no.
And the one part that we looked forward to, the Nicole Kidman ad, they've now shrunken down. And
they have. It's abbreviated now, isn't it?
That felt too long. I don't know.
No. That
right.
I saw it when I took my kids to see Mufasa, and I was like, this is an abbreviated Nicole Kidman we're getting.
We come to this place.
All right. I will say AMC showed me the same crappy AMC laser promo, that's what's eating into the Nicole Kidman time. They ran that twice in a row in the theater, literally back to back. I'm like, what am I at home streaming something?
Get rid of a couple trailers, bring back the full length Nicole Kidman.
Nicole Kidman, there you go. That's Richard's no.
People demand it.
Well, when do you have you have a theater chain? The audiences applaud their promo, and they decide we're gonna cut that back. Like, what kind of
people dress as her for Halloween? I mean,
yeah. Like,
I didn't have Nicole Kidman AMC rant on my rundown for today. These
are the things we're feeling passionate about in the new year, Sean.
Well, this chimes in well with our next segment, which is resolutions and recommendations. So I'm giving out resolution power to Richard and Elaine. So I know what Richard's first one is, clearly. To any institution or person in 2025 as they see fit, with the caveat that neither can involve tennis or McLean Stevenson. So none of those guys. Cross those off your list, guys.
I'll just see myself out then.
Elaine won't be joining us for the second segment. I'm sorry, folks. We'll also shine some light on some things we've enjoyed and recommend here for viewing on a pretty quiet weekend overall. And yes, I know the Golden Globes are on Sunday. So anyway, we'll be back in a moment.
This episode of the Ankler Podcast is sponsored by Universal Pictures presenting Wicked. Forbes hails Wicked as a triumph of cinema, and the Wall Street Journal has selected it as the best film of the year. Nominated for 11 Critics' Choice Awards, including Best Director John M. Chu, Best Actress Cynthia Erivo, Best Supporting Actress Ariana Grande, and Best Picture. Wicked, now playing in theaters and available to watch at home.
All right, as I said, it is a new year, first pod of 2025. So I'm going to play the role of New Year's guy. What's a New Year's baby? I guess I don't know what that's a bad analogy.
It's not a thing, Sean.
That's not a thing. Exactly. So I'm New Year's guy. Congratulations to me. Granting you each resolution power here in Hollywood, so you can encourage someone or some entity in Hollywood to change their ways in 2025, and by all means, take a couple resolutions if you like. Nothing too official here. Well, Lane, why don't we start with you here? So what do you got on the boards here for 2025 for good old Hollywood?
Now, these are not my resolutions. These are resolutions I wish the industry would adopt.
To do. Yes. Yours are,
okay.
Yeah.
100% tennis related.
100% tennis related, so they're not, don't apply here.
Fine. I won't talk your ear off then about perfecting my backhand swing.
Hey. I said no tennis.
Here's what I wish would make more of a comeback. Weekly releases on streaming, which I know sounds like such an old drum to beat, but like
episode drops.
Episodes, yes, for
TV.
TV, Sean. I wish we'd have more weekly releases. I'd like to be able to like have that water cooler feel of like being able to talk to people about things. I enjoyed that when Agatha All Along did that. It was the first time in a long time where I'd really sat down and been like, oh, when does this episode come out? Which is a question I never, ever ask myself for a streaming show.
Right.
But because I was so looking forward to the next one, and I was like, oh, wait, is it 9:00 Pacific? Because that's midnight Eastern. That's like the next day. Or is it midnight everywhere? And they've just sort of controlled for it to be exactly on the date that it drops in your region. Tell me how often anybody's had that kind of conversation lately. And I think it builds a lot of nice excitement for it. I know, some places will say that they just can't build in that capability of doing weekly releases. But honestly, call me old fashioned. I think it does the show a disservice sometimes.
I mean, HBO and Max still do it. The Pit coming out. That's coming out. The new Noah Wiley show on
yes.
That is weekly. Yeah.
Yes, their throwback show. That's kind of what I think about it in my head, like throwback model.
Yeah,
it's like
I know.
Hospital,
a weekly hospital show,
release,
you have your
Noah Wiley, John Wells.
Yeah, someone's listened to you. They're doing it. There you go. So everybody else in Hollywood, take that lesson, please. Richard, what do you got?
Well, I think the number one big thing
besides Nicole Kidman.
but that we will judge. This is very serious. We will judge the success of Hollywood by this year. Is it if at the end of the year there are the same number of studios as there are now? I will call this year a success.
Okay, the resolution is to keep our number of studios at least where we are.
If we do not lose a film studio in this year, so. My resolution variously to CEOs is either don't sell or don't buy another studio, your studio or another studio. If you're Brian Roberts, please don't buy and shut down another studio. If you're others, don't think about selling your studio and having it absorbed into other things. And if you do, and if all you could do that, I will think that it's been a hit, that the year has been a big success, regardless of what else happens. The other thing is if we can't turn a corner on production leaving America, then, this whole industry is just going to be the bankers here. And this whole creative community that has produced everything that Hollywood has done in the last 100 years is on the brink of being disbanded here, effectively, and going off and becoming a bunch of other hubs around the world. So can Hollywood, this is not just the studios, but the guilds, but everyone working together, get it together to turn the page on this? Yeah, our politicians just put forward a new incentive package, which everyone I've talked to has sort of laughed in the face of as way too little, way too late. So let's figure out how to do better.
Well, this narrative has to change, Richard. It goes in one direction. It's right. Is this going to be a year that it changes or gets worse? I think that's exactly the point there. Elaine?
Going back to your first resolution with the studios, I mean, what are the odds that we would see even more consolidation this year? The only expected merger activity that we're going to see is Paramount and Skydance play out. So there's obviously going to be some movement and shuffling around of things there. But I mean, how much further could we possibly consolidate at this point?
Quite a bit.
Well,
possibly a question I don't want to ask. I don't want to.
My predictions remain on the table here. as I continue to stand by them.
You do have Lionsgate on the table, Elaine. Certainly is a freshly split off company, and you've also Warner Brothers, as they've stated. I mean, look, I'm not sure that this is they're selling the studio to somebody else, but I won't rule that out. But there's a major change ahead for Warner Brothers Discovery this year that we're going to see what happens. So,
and do not underestimate the extent to which the Iger succession drama is tied into all this conversation.
They're not naming a CEO that's not happening in 2025. So again, he may be doing something behind the scenes there, Richard. You know, it's entirely possible. I don't necessarily see it, but it could transpire.
So it's the fate of Warner Brothers. Does Larry Ellison remains, even after buying Paramount, a exceptionally wealthy man who's now bought into the industry? Does he want to go bigger and buy another one? Lachlan Murdoch says,
and Fox,
publicly declared, we're shopping now. And at the top of all these, you have a bunch of people that are very friendly with the incoming Trump administration.
The deal hindrances will not be large there. I don't anticipate for sure. But Richard, just back to LA for a second. There's the talk of becoming Detroit, which people were kind of lacking to the streaming boom busting. I'm like, okay, fine, but I think this is the bigger aspect here. It's like, yeah, people are still making TV and movies, but they've just departed Los Angeles, and like this is a real. This has to be actively addressed. This will not be this is just a trend or whatever it might be. As you said, this is the coming together of a lot of people to solve this. This isn't just one studio saying they're going to make a couple more things in town. Like this has to be a much larger effort to turn this around, because it would probably only get worse in 2025 without any further action by people. I don't know.
You need everyone to say that this is a
priority. Yeah.
The priority.
Yeah.
Not just one of a bunch of them. I mean, this wasn't on the radar during the strikes.
Right. Exactly. This is, I know. Exactly. And that wasn't that long ago. So that's the thing. It's, so it could devolve a lot further. So I agree on that. Elaine, anything else on your radar here?
In terms of resolutions?
Yeah.
No, that's it for me.
That's it for you. All right. Richard,
just give me a weekly TV show I can look forward to, and I'll be happy. I'm a woman of minimal needs.
Traders is coming back next week.
That's the big thing.
Traders, yeah. It's featuring a lot of the Survivor greats. Your favorite survivors of Tony from Survivor will be on it.
Oh, well, there we go. There we go. Okay.
Boston Rob.
Actually, I do know that name, oddly enough. Okay.
I wish I knew who all these people were.
Boston Rob, I kind of, not that I know, can pick up on a lineup, but I have heard of the name Boston Rob. But again, a lot of people in Boston are named Rob. So anyway, but any final recommendations here for the weekend here, Elaine? And the 2025 people, if you have anything you liked, you want to give a little shine a little light on here and a little positive note for anything you like out there for the folks to check out?
Oh, anything new or just anything that I watched?
No, because mine goes.
I
have something very old, something that I finally watched. I'm going to recommend, so it can kind of fall anywhere that you watched, recently or not so recently.
Ooh, I think I've already given Black Doves the shout out here, but I watched it again for the second time.
Oh, and wow!
Very firmly feel like it's going to be a Christmas rewatch for me.
Interesting. All right.
Rewatch. Wow.
That twice already. That's impressive. All right, now you want to get those views up there, Netflix. Okay, Richard. Any recommendations here? Year out, you've of course I should give a shout out to Katie Rich's podcast. Richard is on that, giving us 10 films of the year. I think you mentioned actually 14 in true Richard Rushfield style. I can check that out. But any few recommendations here you have for folks for the January viewing here?
You know what I've enjoyed most to watch lately? It's just finished season 4, I believe, of PBS's remake of All Creatures Great and Small.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is a beautiful and touching and really beautifully done series about a vet.
People keep telling me to watch that, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
You'll cry every episode. About a veterinarian in a small British village in the 30s and 40s.
Oh, that sounds very up my alley. And that also reminds me that I think that there's a new Downton Abbey movie this year.
There is in September, I think.
Right? Yes, you've got suffering animal stories in it's like a hospital drama, but with animals.
Oh my, okay.
You want a story to make you feel okay about the world, watch All Creatures Great and Small on
the PBS app. All right, I love it.
What about you, Sean?
All right, so I'm going to list out a few. Richard, I'm going to listen to you on Katie's pod. September 5th. Again, I've mentioned a little bit on the pod here, but it was on that major list of the 10 films for the year. And just, I believe it goes wide in January, September 5th, again, about what happened kind of behind the scenes at ABC Sports during the hostage situation at the Olympics in 1972.
If you're a fan of pre-internet news technology,
it's which you guys do. You love seeing big tapes rolling around.
Yeah.
And,
how do you get this camera out the hall?
Out the hall to shoot outside, and just like
you gotta have six guys lift it up.
Yeah, on that basis alone, and then just you had to wait for the news before anybody would even hear of it, even though it was ongoing, right now, and just that time of it. But Richard, it's also just the pacing of the film, the editing and the directing, it was really strong. It's also it's not a great comp, but like it reminded me like Taken, which was just like it was off and running, and you were just moving, or it just moved so quickly, and was just gripping for like 90 minutes. It's a tight 90, like just nonstop. But it's about journalism and getting a story right. It's not about, an action caper kind of thing, but it's all those things you mentioned, Richard. It was like, this was a big problem to solve. This was a big problem to solve. Do we do, from moral to technical to, to politics, to like internal corporate struggle, like, that there's just so many things at once there in 90 minutes, Richard. So, I recommend it. I really enjoyed it. So that was one to shine a little light on there.
No, that's great. And I'll add on, there's one that wasn't on my list because I hadn't seen it yet, but now I've seen it. Amelia Perez, I watched last night and was really...
So recommend?
Yeah, it's really great and just interesting and fun and engaging. And if I could redo my list now, I would.
You would have put it in there?
I would add that, yeah.
Nice. It's, of course, they're on Netflix. Say Nothing on FX on Hulu. Of course, that's a limited series. I've enjoyed that as well. Recommend that. Centering around the IRA over many decades in Ireland.
Good show. Great book also.
Yes, they're based on a great book. Yeah, that's very true. Elaine, back to the little distance. I finally watched the Best Man series on Peacock.
Oh, yeah? Haven't seen it. How do you like it?
I love this is the thing, Richard, where like, there's two Best Man movies. It's Taye Diggs and Neil Long and a whole bunch. And they all reconvene. They did the movie when they're like 20 years ago, and they did the Best Man Holiday I think around somewhere in the early 2010s. And then they did this series on Peacock. It came out last year, Elaine, it was Christmas last year. I finally watched it this year, but
it did well on Peacock.
It did extremely well, and I hope they do another one in like 6 years. So Peacock, I hope that those guys get back together. Malcolm D. Lee, directed and wrote the series and the movies. And it's just like this, everybody says, we're going to remake St. Elmo's Fire. I'm like, this kind of is that. They check in on these characters. They started back when they were just kind of coming together after college, and now they were adults, and now it's just fun to watch these characters every 7-10 years kind of check in on different parts of their lives. So anyway, I enjoyed that part. And my thing, Mike, I'm curious what you think of this. All the Best Picture nominees out there. The one movie that's not getting any love, it does not need more accolades at all. But Deadpool and Wolverine, I gotta say, somebody asked me my favorite. They said, "What's
somebody
your favorite movie
help this small indie movie along,
exactly,
Sean, with your recommendation."
Yeah, I'm gonna shine a light. It's finally gonna succeed. But that was an extremely hard film to nail, and I had the most. What was my most fun at the movies in 2024? That movie, and that is not an easy movie.
I agree. That was a pure film going experience where I just laughed the entire time.
It's a great time. And that is that's a very hard thing to do, especially for many reasons in that regard. It's not like, it's just X, Y, and Z, very hard to nail. And,
I saw it. And the whole thing is this commentary about the Fox Marvel project and it being
right.
I saw it and I obviously that spoke to me. I was like, wow.
But it works on that level.
Is anyone going to see this movie about the death of the Fox Marvel project?
But it works in the Blade back. They brought Channing Tatum in. They constantly, surprising fun. And again, a deceptively hard movie to make where people are just like, that was it. And it just came about like out of nowhere. So shout out to those guys. It's on probably my top 3 of best films of 2024, as Richard mentioned on the other podcast. 2024 will not go down in history as one of the best years in film.
We'll go down as the worst year in studio filmmaking.
Exactly. So that's it. And this is a studio film from the folks at Disney and Fox together. So shout out to that.
I should get around to watching Deadpool.
Well, there you go. That's my recommendation for you, Elaine. There it is. Okay, good. I've reached somewhere.
Ailing little company called Disney get another Another ticket, well, actually, it's probably streaming now, isn't it?
Disney Plus, yeah, you can watch
Disney
it on
Plus.
Disney
Okay,
Plus.
all right,
Yeah.
fine.
Or
I'm in,
Hulu.
I'm
I think
in.
it's on both of them. You can watch it on Disney Plus or Hulu. So yeah. All right, so
You
I've
guys
reached
made
someone.
so many recommendations. I thought we were just making one.
Well, that's fine. I had a few in my pocket. I watched a lot over Christmas, so I got it all out.
You know
the
what
door.
I
Anyway.
enjoyed over Christmas? Watching Harry Potter Wizards of Baking, which I think is doing really well on Max, actually.
That was watched in my house too.
Don't you laugh. It's entertaining.
That's great.
And it's
I'm glad you're
hosted
enjoying it. No.
by the Weasley twins, whose names escape me right now.
They were available.
Oliver
All right.
and James Phelps, I think. It's
Fred
fun.
and George.
And they have these professional bakers come in and recreate bits of Harry Potter in cake form. It's delightful.
Yeah.
Richard, that sounds like something up your alley.
That was
right
enjoyed in my household also. Yeah.
All right. Shout out to, what's it called, Elaine? Harry Potter what?
Harry Potter Wizards of Baking.
All right. There you go. Got the official thumbs up from Elaine Lowe and Richard Rushfield of The Ankler. All right. Well, that rounds out the pod for this week. Of course, go to theankler.com to sign up for all newsletters and podcasts. Here at The Ankler, just enter the old email address at the site. Also follow on the socials at The Ankler. Richard and Elaine, a happy 2025 to you both. Nice to see you again here post-holiday season, and a big thanks to you all for listening. We'll see you next time.